Well, gee golly, how do you do, everybody? My name is Erik Teren Mullins, and today we're gonna be looking at... It's a bird. It's a plane. Look up! Or look out? DC Comics Kotobukiya's Supergirl. Precisely, the Supergirl returns. This is a 1/7 figure, and it's the third time around that Kotobukiya attempts to make a Supergirl figure. A while back, I used to have all of them, but I wasn't particularly a big fan of the art style and design to the second one. It's okay, it's a specific type of Supergirl, it just wasn't for me. And due to space and budget reasons, I didn't hold on to her. However, I did hold on to the first one, and I really liked this third one. There's just a couple of things here and there, but we'll get into that later in the review. There's one really important thing that I can't help but mention about Supergirl. It's that if you like my video just a little bit, it doesn't cost much to hit that like, hit that subscribe, and why not ping that notification bell? This way you'll be notified of my future videos. For starters, she comes on the most epic base you could possibly get for a Superman thing, and it's not even that complex. It's so simple. They did it on the classic one. This one, it just looks fantastic. Unfortunately, there's one issue with this design of a diamond-style base. She is extremely back-heavy. The cape is hefty, and this thing does nothing to hold it up. She definitely should have been much more forward on the base, so if you decide to put her on anything that shakes, this is going to topple over. I guarantee you it's going to happen, so just be very mindful of that. The plastic quality here is kind of a thick cutout. We get a deepish red, which doesn't really go nicely with the rest of the reds used on her clothing. However, it makes it so she does pop a little bit more, and her feet don't just kind of blend in with the design. Personally, I would have made the yellow far more yellow. It just looks like it's painted on black, and it doesn't have more than one coat on it. So it kind of comes off more mustard in its coloration. Underneath, you can see where she pegs in. She's bolted in there, and when you get her in her package, she is not coming out. It's all one chunk, which is pretty run-of-the-mill for a lot of Kotobukiya Bishoujo figures. But my goodness, due to this, however, she actually doesn't have any clear acrylic plastics throughout the boots. This is very nice, so you can actually see those high heels well. We don't get anything on the highlight department here, but we do get some nice shading, and the red is a very prominent pop-out red. They put in some nice line work for the seams, and we have a matte gold going along the top. Her legs definitely look like they go into these things well, where, speaking about her legs, they look very strong and firm. Her knees look intense. They put quite a bit of shading and sculpt work around them. They really stick out, and up close it might seem a little too over-detailed, but from a shelf it does look really nice. These muscular legs go up into her hips, and here's where we start to get a couple of problems, but you don't notice it that much unless you kind of position her high up on your shelf. The legs are clearly plugged into her panty, bathing suit, under red thing, which actually has decent shading, though the sculpt work on it probably use a bit more work. They're not plugged in super well. There's actually a decent seam line around here, and it would have been nice if it could fit in more flush. Her skirt is very well sculpted, though I would say it kind of lacks a little bit in the department of highlights. And I know that this figure doesn't have any highlights pretty much anywhere on her, which is definitely a problem, but even the shading here, it could have been better done, gone into the seams a little more, just to make things feel more three-dimensional, because from a distance, it all kind of blends up together. But the lovely flow that we get from the sculpt work is nice, and it really helps with the overall dynamic pose that this figure has. We then have her golden belt that is painted on, and this thing is... okay, this definitely needed a bit of shading or highlights to it because it's really bland. And the way that the belt threads through the skirt loops is really not that well done. You can see certain angles here and there where it's just, it just looks like it's a big chunk glued in with other chunks and painted on top of chunks. So many chunks, and it could have definitely used a bit more detail here. Now, by golly, just hold up one moment, because it may sound like I'm kind of going a little intense on this figure, but you got to keep in mind that she actually has an incredibly generous price point on her. Upon her release, she was really not that expensive, and so a lot of what I'm nitpicking here, this is a hardcore budget figure, and in comparison to other budget figures roughly at the same price point around when she came out, my gosh, this thing sure is terrific for what you're getting. As we go up into her stomach, it is extremely well sculpted. There's a little bit of shading, and it does an excellent job at accentuating her musculature. The plastic here isn't perfect, as we have ever slight little mold lines, but they're really not that noticeable from a distance. And here's where we go up into her top. Nice gold band along the bottom. However, there's a little bit of a paint mishap on the left side of her costume. The Superman logo is done in metallics. My goodness, I'm not sure what to say about this. Personally, I think I would have liked the S to be just a bland matte S logo, kind of match up a little bit better with her cape, but it does pop very nicely, and from any kind of distance, it's just shining that House of L logo. Her chest is nicely sculpted, and we do have a couple of stretch lines that are sculpted into the plastic. Again, all of this would have benefited from a little bit better shading or a couple of highlights here and there. And then we get into her arms, and ah, my goodness, this could have been an easy fix. Kotobukiya is a cursed part, and usually they're fairly good with this, but I would say for the Bishoujo line, it's hit or miss. You can see on her right arm, there's an absolutely atrocious seam line for where they just glued this arm here. I don't know who thought this would be fine and it would look good. Supergirl's costume is all sewn up together, and this could have actually been seen as a seam or a hem, and my goodness, it would have fooled us all into thinking that that was just part of her costume's design and make. But I suppose not everyone has Batman or Mr. Terrific's foresight, and in this case, neither did Kotobukiya. The arm itself is nicely sculpted, great stretches and folds in the fabric. We get a bit of shading here and there, which does a good job at accentuating certain parts. Where we come down into her open hand, great personality here, beautiful fingernails, they've got some nice shine to them, and the hands really are well sculpted. Meanwhile, on her left arm, everything is as well done as the right. Just looks terrific. Even better because we don't have that weird seam line. Her hand, however, here is super weird. I think the hand itself is very well sculpted. It looks gorgeous, but it's supposed to be really resting on her. Gee golly, they just missed the mark by quite a bit. And it's a little unfortunate because I sure am bending Kotobukiya over a barrel on this, and it's only because of the fact that this feels like it could have been an easy fix. I'm not 100% sure if this is a QC issue or if she's just like that, but I'll be sure to share some of the official product photos of this figure, so this way we all know what they were truly thinking. The way the cape then flows around her shoulders, I would have definitely made the front part bevel up much more. Unfortunately, it looks like her whole collarbone here is actually being pushed or overlaid on top of the cape. This needed to go in. From a distance, it's okay. From up close, this Supergirl in that particular area is not quite super. My goodness, that cape itself, much like Wonder Woman's prowess at martial arts, is absolutely fantastic. I would say that it is just selling you on everything that this figure has to offer. It's beautiful. We have excellent sculpt work here, really good deep darker red shading going into the grooves properly, and a nice gold trim along the outside that just makes everything pop. Tag team that along with her skirt and her hair and the dynamic pose in general, and you just have something that really looks imposing while on your shelf. The neck is long and has a decent amount of musculature to it, and I think that that's well done. The way that it connects underneath her face, by golly, it's unfortunately not so great. You can see an extremely strong seam line as it goes up and under her ear, where her ear sculpt is not the best either. The face itself is really nice though. I personally like rounder faces. I do think that this does an excellent job at an East meets West look for this Supergirl design. We get some lovely gloss on the lips, little red defining line that really makes it stick out from a distance. The nose here is far more defined than something you would find on an anime figure, but right in the ballpark of something you'd see on an American style figure. While when we go up to her eyes, they have a lovely gloss to them, while the eyelashes are matte. My goodness, Kotobukiya, you're just so good at this, and I feel like I'm always praising you for it because I love the way that you do your eyes. They don't feel too decalish, and they have all the different textures that I want in an eyeball. It's so odd to say something like this, but when you end up having quite a few figures in your possession, all the little details like this are just things you start to notice. Her hair is beautifully sculpted, flowing in the wind, and because the carving of it is so incredibly deep, it just looks fantastic. You don't see many of the mold lines or seams of everything being plugged in together. Really good. My dilemma with the hair is that this is a very dirty blonde look. It does match up very nicely with sort of more realistic adaptations of Supergirl, but being a comic book or anime manga fan especially, I am not a fan of this. I would have preferred a brighter yellow like this, but maybe with some really nice anime shine or highlights to it, and I just think that this definitely needed highlights, that comic book blonde or anime blonde that you would get from a Supergirl character. It's just so odd that they would choose this more realistic depiction of her hair. And on numerous occasions, I thought of actually maybe dry brushing some yellow across it just to make it pop a bit more. And I never pulled the trigger on that because painting a whole figure that isn't all busted up or damaged, diddly darn, that would sure be a difficult task to achieve, especially if I ended up failing on it. I do like this figure quite a bit. Upon her release, Supergirl was going for 8,500 yen. This is back in 2018, and when they did her re-release in 2020, they didn't up the price because Kotobukiya is just extremely cool like that. That is an insanely good price point for a figure like this. I know that she has a couple of her downs, but the ups just far surpass it. And if you're a fan of Supergirl, you have your pick of the litter. I mean, they make so many Supergirl statues of all sorts of different Supergirls throughout the years, but I'm personally not a huge fan of American statues. I love the artwork that it's based off of, and I find the sculpt work is okay. Real issue is paint work. The paint job that they put on American statues, for the most part, is extremely bland. And even like the sculpt work, I find is always so sharp. They'll put in more details than they have to in the face to be able to try and create certain emotions, where it just kind of breaks that face up and makes it no longer look as soft or as pretty as it would normally look for someone that almost looks like they'd be on the cover of some fashionista magazine. And this works really well with male characters. You can chop them up, make them look all sharp edges, lines here and there, it's okay. But for female figures, this is unfortunately quite daunting. And their price points are genuinely pretty similar to what you're getting from Japan, so it's just unfortunately hard to compare a lot of these. However, there's also the question of style and tastes, and if you like more of that American comic book look, you're not necessarily going to find that going through Japan. It's very few and far between. Oh my gosh, I should have dusted Power Girl. Like, I was here dusting all sorts of figures for this thing, and the two I forgot was Power Girl and this Batman. Batman, you don't notice it so bad, but and I even had her put away in storage. I don't know how she got so much dust just on her base. It might have been from when I was like cleaning up my whole area earlier today. It just got all moved around. I'm just gonna go with that as my excuse. I've always been a huge fan of Supergirl, ever since I was a little kid, and I would watch those 90s cartoons of the Batman and then Superman and Justice League, and the Supergirl that's from the animated series is probably one of my favorite characters of all time, and really made me love Kara Zor-El. And as I started reading the comics and seeing all these different iterations of Supergirl that they keep cropping up with every couple of years, it feels like they struggle so much finding a good place for her, a good home, or a good story, and yet she should be relatively easy to write an intriguing story to. I know that they genuinely want her to be part of the Legion. They've thrown her to the future without knowing what to do with her so often. At least I get to use this Legion ring for something. I can just display it here. Looks pretty good, I'd say. But I'm not here to give you a whole review on what I think about Supergirl as a character. Plus, gosh diddly darn, she's just a total badass and such a hardcore, strong, epic character. She's been out for quite a while, so have the other two. Which one of the three is your personal favorite? And despite my giving you the highs and lows like a drama on this figure, I definitely really love her quite a bit. I'm not sure what her secondary market price point is going for these days, but like most Kotobukiya stuff, especially when they're not making newer ones or if there's nicer versions of different characters, they can tend to go pretty high up there. So just be careful. If you really like her, try and get her at a good price point. Kotobukiya has also released an alternate colored version of this Supergirl that is, I guess, kind of like her evil alternate reality self. But gosh darn it, I'm just a fan of the old school classic goody two-shoes. It's nice to be nice. It wasn't super expensive back in the day, and with the new Supergirl show on the rise, it wouldn't throw me off too much to see an announcement all of a sudden for them to be coming out with another Supergirl anime figure by Shunya within the next few years. There's no guarantee they'll do it, but it is quite possible. Hopefully my review today helped you decide which side of the fence you're on. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Oh my gosh, it's so hot. I can't keep this thing on anymore. You'll all know my secret identity. I'm secretly Earth 22 Superman. He's my favorite one. Probably should have done this. Maybe I'll just re-record that part, but I'll dust it. Nah, I feel like people should know that I'm just like most people when it comes to stuff like this. I try to take care of things, dust them up every now and then. But, you know, it happens. Get busy. Wait a minute. Who am I talking to?